I was just thinking about how I watch so many commercials to make these Kazum's Mystery Commercial Theaters. Just, oh my God. There have been times when I want to make one of these, and it's just like, man, I'm starting to run into the same ads over and over again and stuff. But there have been times where I'll sit there for 3 or 4 hours watching ads, old ads. And most of the time, the ones that I'm watching, there's a reference to the year. A lot of times it can be broken down to the exact date. And you get to see what sold products at the time. And you know that those same methods aren't going to work, several years from then. Usually those methods work for a while, though. And there's a reason why those methods work. The year that it is shows in the way that people do everything. It's in our thinking. It's in the way that the way that we do things. It's in the stylings. It's in fashion. It's in everything. If someone, let's say, I think it would be an interesting movie if there was some way to sort of imagine how things would be just in 5 years. Weird things that could catch on, right? Have a movie where something happened and they jumped forward 5 years. Just bam. Last 5 years didn't exist to this person. And how they deal with all these things that are just, our language changes. In the period of 5 years, yeah, a lot of words can come in and out of fashion. It's fascinating to me. Paying attention to this stuff is why I could hear a tiny clip of a song that I've never heard before, and usually be within a couple years accuracy, tell you when it was made, just by the things that are popular at the time when it comes to production values. Now, lately, it's gotten a lot harder, since everything has switched to pretty much doing everything via a computer. It's gotten a lot harder to tell these differences. One of the main ones that came into the picture in EDM in the early part of the 2000s is the I forgot what there's a certain phrase that's associated with that effect, where every time you hear it turns the volume down on one of the on some of the instruments in the background, and then they come back up. So it's like that, right? And that's something that's definitely, it's a telltale of at least, 2003, maybe 2005. But after that, just it's hard to really focus on much. Of course, you have to really be into pop music for that to, and I don't like a lot of the modern pop music. Things have gotten so dumbed down, it's just pathetic. I mean, musically dumbed down. I've just had no interest. There hasn't been enough variance in pop music. And pop music is what that's what really, really tells the period. Some of the indie music, they're not going to be using the same techniques. So I'm pretty accurate on when something was made up until around, 2002, 2003, and then my accuracy just kind of goes out the window. Except on the appearance of products. I can still do that on appearance, but music, hard to tell. Automobiles, it's gotten a little bit harder too, especially as all of the brands, all of the makers seem to be copying each other in their designs. You got those headlights that have how do you explain the way that the main shell on the headlights are made and the shape of them? Well, they're almost all using that. You can't tell a difference between the Ford and the Subaru and the Toyota or the Kia. They're all adopting these same shapes. And there's always been some of that going on with vehicles, but there were always these telltale signs of that's a Ford, or that's a, whatever brand it is. The only company that I see doing that would be Volvo with their ugly taillights. But you still couldn't really tell from the front. Have you ever noticed that police cars are always American vehicles? Well, I used to be able to tell a vehicle what type it was, or whether it was at least American or not, by the headlights. You know, so if there's sudden you're on the freeway, you're going a little fast, and you see this car starting to creep up, and it looks like an American car. Well, it's time to just kind of slow down a little bit, just in case it's a cop. Well, now it's harder to do that. Not that I speed that much on the freeway, but when I used to go between Tacoma and Seattle, there were a lot of areas where I'd go 70 or so, 70, 75. You know, there are so many things that it's hard to tell the difference between brands. I always think it's funny when a company will totally rebrand their products. Completely change the logo, their catchphrase, everything. They change the whole... It's like, why would you do that? And was this the old one ugly or something? Did you really think it was ugly? Or you're just... I mean, why does Pepsi change theirs so much? Coke has done some changes, but they usually stick to mostly the same thing. But Pepsi's changed a bunch of times. Then you got, how about cake, right? Duncan Hines cake. And someone always counts on the way that the packaging looks, and then they completely change it. And then you're like, well, is this the same cake? You know, is there something wrong with the way that things were before? Do companies no longer want people to count on a product being a particular thing or looking like a particular thing? I don't know. It's weird. We need to modernize. Yeah, and then at some point you're going to modernize and it'll look like a throwback. Oh, but it's retro now. Another thing that watching all these commercials makes me realize is just how much I was raised by television. And how there are values that commercials teach. And the values are, be a good consumer. One of the biggest things that's changed over the years in the way things get advertised is that, I mean, this is going to sound really cheesy, but family and this sort of a wholesomeness, so to speak, used to be in commercials. It used to be the big thing. I'd say the 80s is when it really started to change into just over-the-top everything. By the time we got to around 98 or so, commercials were willing to promote not really promote it directly, but indirectly it is, promote really awful behavior in order to promote a product. And now, I mean, it's just no holds barred. Things that we see now in commercials is stuff that people would joke about. I bet ads will be like this in the future. Yeah, would they probably joke about 20 years ago? More than that, really, too. I'd say that people could have joked about that in the 80s. Oh, I bet they'll have ads like this. That is just commonplace now. A lot of people were pretty accurate about guessing how bad commercials would get, and they have. And it's one of the many reasons why I don't include the very many newer commercials in commercial theaters. It's just kind of sad, as I've stated before, that we've kind of lost our morality. The fact that there have been people who have been killed from being stampeded over Black Friday should speak volumes, but for some reason it doesn't. USA! USA! What other country would have something like that happen? But you know, you're being a good consumer, right? Anyway.